Hey everyone, it's Tyler Nethercott, better known as T-Pott, back for another Market Movers tutorial video. I hope that you had an opportunity to watch the introduction video that I did last week. This week I want to take a closer look into our popular card charts. This is really where Market Movers got its start in the very beginning a year ago, and I'm really excited to show you what it can do. But before I jump into popular card charts, I really wanted to take a minute to explain what we mean when we say popular cards. And what we mean by that is we're basically using 4 different criteria to determine the most popular cards to add formally into our Market Movers database. The first criteria is importance. And importance could mean importance of player or importance of set. So you think about a set like 2012 Prism or 1996 Topps Chrome. Those are certainly going to have more importance in the hobby and in investment than modern sets, things like Obsidian Basketball or Chronicles or other sets that are kind of catching on, but they don't obviously have the prestige of those historically important sets. Importance of player would mean we're adding LeBron James before we're adding players who don't ever see the court. I think our members would, for example, find it pretty fishy if we were adding and prioritizing AJ Pollock over Mike Trout. See what I did there? Dad joke. Anyway, ubiquity is the second piece that we use for determining popular cards. And ubiquity is really just a fancy way of saying that there's many of them in the marketplace. There's enough transactions happening to generate a trend line over time. So ubiquity is really important. We don't want to add cards that are kind of irrelevant, that aren't transacting regularly, that just don't have an overall market presence, because prices change so frequently, week to week, especially month to month, that if a card's only transacting like every 3 months or every year or never even, it's not worth it for us to take the time to put that card formally into Market Movers. The third piece that we use is price and grade relevancy. So cards that are super, super cheap, 50-cent cards, things that you might find on, certain discount bulk websites, we're not going to add those in. And then the same thing with like super, super, super high-end cards, kind of tying into the ubiquity piece. We're not going to add those if they don't transact regularly, or we don't even know what grade they are in or whether or not they exist, if they'll ever see the market in general. The fourth piece that we add is time effort. So it takes us time to set up every single card query to get everything set up into Market Movers. And so it makes more sense for us to get all of the players and relevant grades and variations in from a particular set using the logic that we establish, as opposed to going in and adding a card like, for example, a real request that we got was for a Mike Miller 2000 SP Authentic autograph card. Somebody, I'm sure, is a Mike Miller collector out there. Somebody's probably passionate about that card. Maybe they invested in it 20 years ago, but there's not a lot of people looking for that card right now. So there's definitely 100,000 cards higher on the priority list for us to add. So those are the 4 pieces: importance, ubiquity, relevancy, and time effort to add the cards. So that's enough to talk about, whether or not we're going to add popular cards like that. Let's jump over and take a look at the popular card charts themselves. So I'm here on the dashboard, and basically all you need to do in order to get into popular card charts is to come over here and hover over this little icon for the chart and go to popular card charts. Now right off the bat, one of the really nice features is that you can choose your date range right away, and we've added in these quick little toggles. So you can choose last 365, last 180, etc., etc. We default it to last 90 days, and I'm just going to leave it for this search. Let's say I wanted to compare a few of Zion Williamson's cards to see what they've been doing recently. So I simply type in Zion Williamson's name. One thing you'll notice is that certain players will have this little notes icon next to them. The notes icon is what we call player milestones, and it's basically a way for us to capture really important moments in a player's career, things that could, either just historical importance like their draft selection spot, or some like big performance night, key injuries, big contract signings. This is something that we've just started kind of inputting into Market Movers. So you won't see it on every player, and you'll definitely not see all the major milestones for players. Jadon Sancho, for example, just became the youngest player in the Bundesliga history to score or to have 50 assists. Not in here yet, but a good example of something that we would put in there. So I just wanted to make sure you know what that's for. So I'm going to keep coming down here, and this shows you all the sets that we have set up for Zion right now in Market Movers. I'm going to choose 2019 Prism Basketball, and then you can see all the variations that we have set up here. Now this is going to be growing. We're actually going to be moving this to a structure where we have entire checklists for these sets which are really important that people want to know about. So this will be growing, and we'll also be restructuring this a little bit so that the base variations are sequenced in an order that's logical based on rarity and alphabetization. So I'm going to select the base card and the silver card, and then just click choose variations, and I'll go with PSA 10 and PSA 9 just to have a nice comparison on this chart, and I'm going to run the search. Now when the search finishes running, you can see it generates a nice graph. It's showing you the price movement on all 4 of these cards. They're color coded, and looking at something like this, because Zion's Prism Silver PSA 10 is so much more expensive than these other cards, you really don't get to see the movement on these cards. And this was the first chart that we originally released with Market Movers. But one thing we added last year, which is really valuable, and it's actually where I tend to spend a lot more of my time, is on the price changes by percentage. And this chart shows you that the trend is consistent across these cards, but you can also see that the highs and the lows can be quite a bit different in terms of price movement. So for something like this, it's really interesting. Zion's PSA 9 silver has gone up over time more than Zion's PSA 10 silver, at least over the last 3 months. It's seen kind of more price stability. It also saw a much higher high. So something you can kind of look at when you're considering what you're going to buy is that what's happened recently. Now the next chart is this total sales dollars, and what this is doing is it's multiplying the spot price by day times the total number of transactions, which we also have on a chart here. So this is a really nice one to see if you're comparing multiple players. If you want to look and see how many total dollars are hitting the market regularly, this is a great one to use when comparing across multiple players for the same card. The last chart is this last average sale price. And last average sale price is just a bar chart kind of showing you the relative price of each of these cards one to another. You can see obviously the silver card being much higher than the others, but if you hover over them, it'll show you the price, it'll show you which card it's relating to. This is really nice on set and year charts, which I'll show you in a little bit. So scrolling down here, we've got some statistics about these cards. This is just going to show you the total volume and the total number of transactions, total dollars, almost $2 million in sales for these Zion cards over the last 3 months. And then if you keep scrolling down, you get into the card stats section. And this is really, really important, space that I use regularly when I'm writing my weekly card picks for our members. This is what I use heavily. I put a lot of screenshots of this. And this is really important because it shows you, how many of the cards are selling, the low, the high, what it started at in that particular period, and what it ended at. And then this is the really valuable part, which shows you, how many dollars, the total change in terms of dollars, as well as the percent change. And it's just interesting looking at a card like this to see that Zion's PSA 10 is actually down 13% in the last 90 days in this silver, and his PSA 9 is up 24%. So it doesn't necessarily convey a very clear, direct thing to you, but these are the types of data pieces that as you're looking at different players, you start picking up on trends kind of through osmosis when you're looking at this type of information. So I really quick want to come down here and show you that you can save this search. So I could call this 2019 Prism Base Silver Zion 10.9. You can name it however you want to. That's what I'm going to name it. And then I can hit save. And then it'll save that search. And you probably noticed when I first came to this page that it was showing some saved searches. But if I click on save searches in the top right hand corner here, you'll see that I have all the saved searches that I've done here. You can create categories. So I can create a basketball category, and then very easily you can just drag these over into that category and keep track of your saved searches that way. Another really cool feature is just these more advanced filters or toggles. You can exclude specific sellers. So obviously sometimes there's issues with consignment. Jeff's done episodes on this on the Sports Card Investor YouTube channel about shill bidding and fraudulent sales. Unfortunately, consignment's an amazing thing, and I use consigners somewhat regularly, but when you send something off to consignment, you basically open up the possibility that you can use your own account or a fraudulent account to bid on your own cards and drive the prices up. Don't do it. It's completely unethical. It's one of the worst things about the hobby and about the industry in general. And it certainly doesn't mean that every card from these consigners that's happening, but it is a concern amongst investors and collectors alike. So if you click on this, and I'll just show you how the price changes can be impacted. You can exclude Probstein 1, 2, 3, and it's going to slightly adjust some things. It might not have a big impact. It might on rarer cards. you can exclude PWCC, you can exclude COMC, etc., etc. Another piece that we've put in here to protect investors, to make sure that you're getting the right price, is that you can exclude zero feedback or low feedback rating users. And basically what that means is, a lot of times you get these people who create a fake account. They go out and they bid up a bunch of cards because they're trying to artificially inflate the market value of their own cards, and then they just cancel the sale and they don't get any feedback. They don't get positive feedback. I tend to stay away from these types of accounts. I also look at that when I'm selling my own cards on eBay. If somebody sends me an offer on a card that I have and they have little to no buyer feedback, I don't accept their offer. I'm not interested. They're going to have to prove that they're a valid seller or a valid buyer some other way. And then down here you can actually filter by the type of sale. So you can exclude buy it nows, you can exclude auctions, you can exclude best offers. So if you only wanted to see the auction price, and I know a lot of people who like to do that because they feel like it's more a pure reflection of the market, you can do that. You can see what the prices did over time. You can see it's kind of interesting. It's sort of condensed down some of the highs and lows. So that's up to you how you want to view that information. Let's jump over and actually look at another chart. And I already ran this chart right here, which is a comparison of 4 guys from 2 different years who I kind of think compare to one another in terms of their performance. Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray strike me as 2 guys from the 2016 and 2017 draft who are really similar. And then teammates Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, 2 forwards, they're from the 2016 and 2017 class too. I love to do this and to pull in these types of searches and see how are these guys comparing to each other over time. And if you do that, and I've got, again, the last 90 days, you can see that Jaylen Brown's cards have been on the rise, and he's been playing really well this year. So his percent gain over time has actually been going up more than these other players. Donovan Mitchell stayed flat for a while. He came down in January, but now his cards are starting to heat up. And in terms of price inflation to his cards, they're almost caught up to Jaylen Brown's. And then you see Jason Tatum and Jamal Murray's cards are actually down a little bit over the last 90 days. So that's a great way to look at that. You can look at the same thing on this price changes chart. And what I've actually done here is I've actually changed my filter, and I wanted to view this as results by week. And then you can do the same thing, results by month. You can show the sales only. So this is just kind of a nice way to skip. You'll see that little legend hover over time to see what are these guys' prices doing week over week and sort of how they're intersecting with one another in an actual gross, total number perspective instead of by percentage. So it's really interesting. You can see Jaylen and Donovan Mitchell are kind of neck and neck. That seems really reasonable to me. Tatum actually, his play has been a lot more inconsistent this year. It'll be really interesting as we go toward the playoffs to see if he picks up his game at all or if either of these guys can catch up to him in price. So that's just a really great way to compare these prices, across rookie sets and across different players. One thing I wanted to actually jump back to on this Zion card is card ratios. So we have another tab here called Intelligence Reports. And on this tab, you can look at this on a much larger scale. But we also put these grade ratios and variation ratios into our popular card charts. And basically, this is kind of, if you think about when you were growing up and you had the Beckett magazine, you could usually see that Michael Jordan cards were 2 times the price of Shaquille O'Neal cards, which were 1.5 times the price of Gary Payton and Grant Hill cards. And you kind of use these multipliers to make trades with your friends and say, this is how I'm going to give you this card, you give me this card. That logic still applies somewhat today, although it's definitely not hard and fast. It's really valuable to know certain multipliers in the back of your mind just to make a quick deal if you're at a card show, or even to find potential opportunities out on eBay where the market just might not have adjusted quite yet. So when I come down here, I can see, really interesting, the PSA 10 to PSA 9 silver is just below 4x multiplier, which normally we see in Prism 3.65 to 3.85 as a normal multiplier for PSA 9 to 10. This is much lower on his base card. And it's, then you can kind of wonder, okay, does that mean that the base is too low? The PSA 10 base is too low? Does that mean the PSA 9 base is too high? That's really somewhat significantly lower than we normally see for a PSA 10 to a PSA 9. That being said, there's significantly different population reports here. And so this is the kind of stuff that I'd love to get into in a future video when we're walking through those intelligence reports and doing more live streams with the community. And then down here on the variation ratios, what you see is the PSA 9 silver to the base PSA 9 is at a ratio of 5.3, whereas the PSA 10s are much higher. So again, we'll unpack this more and what types of things this might be telling us in terms of learning and how we can evaluate the broader market from a macro level about using ratios to determine where there might be opportunities. But I just wanted you to be aware that these are in popular card charts, and you can check them on an ending average of 30 days, 7 days, and the most recent ending average. So let's jump back over to the rookies from the 2016 and 17 class. A couple things here with these quick icons. So you see these buttons underneath here. You can actually click on these buttons to take you right out to eBay to look for cards for sale. So I click on that and I can see right here, that's Donovan Mitchell's card. I want to know, let's scroll down and see what Mitchell sold for recently. $596. There's one here for $625. I can click on buy it now. I can sort by ending soonest and see, or rather sort by lowest. And it looks like those are the best deals out there. And that's pretty reasonable. Usually you go within 5% of recent, comps to try to find something to buy quickly if you're high on it. You can also do the same thing in this for sale area, where if I click on, for example, Donovan Mitchell here, I can see these cards and I can see that they're for sale. If I click on this one, looks like that one actually sold since I ran this page. So you can see, even while I'm doing this, the market moves very quickly. These ones have actually already sold. People are snatching up Donovan Mitchell. Must be at Jeff's recommendation with the top 5 from this last week or the forecast. So you've used the eBay for sale ad. Let's say you just purchased one of those cards and you paid $625. You can click this button to add it to your collection really quickly. Put in 625, choose today's date. You can put it into a category if you want to, and you would just click OK to add it to your collection. The next thing that I usually do is add a price alert right from this same screen. Click on this and I say, you know what? I think this card has $900 upside. I want to know when this card passes $900, or I want to know when this card passes $850. Hit that and hit OK. And now you've got a price alert that's going to send you an email notification around noon Eastern time every day if this card passes $850 in threshold. I love this system. You come in here, you figure out what your buy point is, you find the card that you want to purchase, and then you click on add to your collection, set a price alert, and then you can literally just make sure you get it in the mail and put it somewhere where you know it is, and wait for that baby to grow in value and get it back onto eBay and sell it when it hits your sell point. So the last thing that I want to show you is our set and year charts, which is really similar to popular card charts, but it has some nuance in terms of how the data filters. So to get to set and year charts, all you need to do is come over here and click on set and year charts. I've already run a search over here that I'll show you. Now, I've run this by basketball, 2018 and 2019, Prism, Silver, PSA 10s. And I like to do this because this allows you to see prices on a large scale. When I ran this report, you can see the chart. I mean, it's not really showing us a lot. But what I did was I changed this from day to week. And one really nice thing is if you scroll over this, you can see all of the players. And you can see it goes Luka, Zion, Trey, Ja, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You can go from week to week and kind of see how, who's moving on these lists. Luka, Zion, Ja, Trey, Shai. You can kind of scroll like that over time. I've seen a lot of members in our community who produce their own YouTube content do something like that just to see how the prices are moving and who's stacking up against who over time. But where I really like to use this isn't in the chart. Some people like the chart. It's in the stats. It's in the ratios. So if I scroll down, I've got all of these cards. And you can see there's, a couple of pages of these. I think there's 50 on each page. You can scroll all the way up to the top, and you can sort this by percent change over time. So now I can see that in the last 90 days, of all the cards, all the Silver Prism PSA 10s that we have from 2018 and 2019 Prism, DeAndre Hunter is leading the pack in the last 90 days in terms of whose cards have gone up the most. It's interesting because he just got hurt, but he was playing extremely well before he got injured for the Hawks. So his cards are up the most. Next closest, KZ Okpala. Gary Trent Jr. has been playing really well, and you can kind of keep scrolling and see who's gone up and who's gone down. Now this one, Brandon Clark, for example, he hasn't been playing as well this year. And I was actually really high on Brandon Clark last year. He seemed really efficient, really mature, really polished in his game. He hasn't been playing nearly as well this year for the Grizzlies. I don't know if it's just the overall injuries around him, but you can see it reflected in his market price. So I like to come in here and see that. Let's sort by price. You can see that of all the Prism Silvers we have now, Landry Shamet is the cheapest, and that includes even some of these veteran cards. So not a lot of confidence in a guy like Landry Shamet right now, but that's really interesting because these are so low. And this is kind of the rock bottom for a PSA 10 Prism Silver, like 40, 45 bucks. That's really cheap. What that tells me is, when the playoffs roll around, Shamet's on the Brooklyn Nets, and he can hit big threes. All it would take is for a guy like that to hit a big game winner, and or something, and have a big showing, and people go crazy. Stranger things have happened. I'm not saying I would go out and buy a ton of Landry Shamet, but I also wouldn't really be selling at this price right now if I'm holding him, because there's opportunity for it to go up. So you can see who is the cheapest. You can see who is the most expensive. No surprises here. But remember, Zion and Luka at one point were like tracking neck and neck, and Ja and Trey at one point were tracking neck and neck. So when I see this, I like to go in and look at Shai's stats are actually better than Ja Morant's this year. Trey's stats are much better than Ja Morant's this year in terms of player efficiency rating and everything, all of his statistics. And, Zion has been playing extremely well. The market has pulled back on him. I don't think they've lost confidence in what the Pelicans are doing or what the story is. But I'm high on Zion. I come in here and I see this and I'm like, that's too much of a gap. I think the guy's got a bright future. His cards are down. Maybe there's an opportunity. So this is set in your charts. It works pretty much exactly like popular card charts. You can still view the ratios as well. So that's really nice. And you can still use save searches. So I saved this search, put it into a basketball category. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's video. I hope that you enjoyed this and that it's helpful. Again, if you're interested in becoming a member of Market Movers, go to marketmoversapp.com or visit sportscardinvestor.com and click on Market Movers in the menu bar. Please leave a comment if you have any questions for me. Email us at help@sportscardinvestor.com and like this video, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time about Chart Any Card.